Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be, am I being used? Well, I've got an email here from a woman who's in an interesting situation here. And I really like the email that she wrote in because she brings up something that happens, and it's like just reminds me of like the way I used to be when I was younger. Because like when you look at the world as a whole, the average person that you're going to encounter on the street, the overwhelming majority of people are settling for a life of mediocrity. And it's not just in their career or their businesses or their lives and their lifestyle or how they take care of their bodies. It's also in their intimate relationships and how they show up and what they put up with. And if you've read my book, then you obviously know the story behind the marriage that I had when I was in my early 20s, where I was just young and I was weak. And it was really a relationship that should have ended. But instead of ending it, I went ahead and married her. And it's just because I was young and I was inexperienced and I was weak. And my biggest fear that I had deep down was that I would never find anybody who would love me as much as she did. And all of us as human beings, we face that fear. We face that feeling. Because you start dating somebody and you may be excited initially, but maybe after a few dates or a few weeks or a few months or even a year or two, you realize that your goals and your values aren't aligned. And in our society as a whole, the majority of the people have this idea, we've all had this idea beat into our heads that we got to be with one perfect person our whole lives. And since the majority of the people are still stuck in that mindset, they're in that place, it's like anybody that doesn't match their idea or their perception of what a perfect relationship is supposed to be, then they're like, oh, there must be something wrong with you. Must be something wrong with them. And that's the way they look towards other people and they interact with other people. How come you're not married? How come you've been married for 20 years? If you know so much, why aren't you? And those are the things they think. But the reality of the situation, statistically, I mean, the divorce rate's over 65%. And the way I personally look at relationships is that because of the experience that I had in my 20s with my ex-wife, I made a promise to myself. I said, I will never get married again unless I'm 100% certain that I want to spend my life with that person. And people that I coach, people that I date, I always tell them, date 2 to 3 years. You got to get way past the honeymoon period. You got to get past the point where the infatuation wears off and get down to the brass tacks of what this person is like day in and day out, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and vice versa, you as well, to see if you're really a good team, or if you're really a good match, because most people just are not in those particular situations. And it's like, I mean, you look at Hollywood. Look at all the celebrities that have been married 4, 5, 6 times. It's literally, you could go right now to MSM or one of the other sites where they're always posting information about celebrities or people in the media, and it's the same people over and over getting married and divorced. They last a year. They date for 6 months, they date for a year, and then they go and get married, and within a year or two, they're divorced again. And they repeat the same cycle over and over and over again because, again, society has this meme that you got to be with one person, you got to grab that person, and you got to hold on forever. And if you don't do that, there's something wrong with you. It's just not the reality of the way the world is. I mean, I coach a lot of guys that are older, that are in their 60s, 70s, 50s, where they've been married 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years with one person. And across the board, when I talk to all of them, every fucking single one of them realize after several years, usually it's at around 7, 8 years, maybe 10 years, they realize that the relationship or the marriage was fucked. And they weren't happy, but yet they stayed in it for the kids, supposedly. And then after they get to a certain point in their life, they realize, you know what, I'm just not fucking happy. The kids grow up, they move away, they start families of their own. And then they're looking at each other like, I don't even know this person. And that's what happens a lot of the time, most of the time in life. That's what you see. You see, when I look at human relationships, the way my perspective on things, from the way I look at things, is every person that comes into your life, they're there for a reason. They're there to help you grow and become more, and you're there to help them grow and become more. And you either grow together or you grow apart. There's very few people that are going to be on this journey with you your whole entire life. I mean, look at friendships. I mean, I'm 44 now. And when I look at all the, like when I was younger, I tended to have lots and lots of friends. I literally had hundreds of friends. Because when I went to high school, I grew up with the people. They were all in the same town, the same city. Anywhere I went, even now, I go down to South Florida. I go out to the bars, restaurants, or places where I used to frequent when I lived down there. And I always run into somebody that I know that I might not have seen in years because there's just a lot of people down there. But when I look at my close friendships, the people that I've stayed in contact with for 2+ decades, I can count them on one hand where those friendships are really dear, deep friendships where you really care about one another and you stay in touch with each other as the years roll on. Because as you get older, those people that aren't really close to you, or you may have hung out with them a lot, they're kind of fringe friends, or your friends but not really. I mean, if you're going through a difficult time, they'd be, oh yeah, I gotta go, I gotta run. They're never there to help you. But a true friend, when you're going through a difficult period of time, it's like they're there for you no matter what. And they just love you for you. Those are rare. Those are special types of relationships, just like your family. I mean, your family hopefully is always going to be there for you or be a part of your life. Like I said, it's the same thing with lovers. When you look at the statistics, the reality is the numbers reflect, as a society, as a whole, the majority of long-term marriages don't work out. The majority of marriages, period. I mean, divorce rate's over 65% at this point. 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was 50%. So what does that tell you? It tells you people are becoming more independent, more successful, especially women. They don't need a man for anything. They can raise, you see lots of people in the news adopting kids on their own without being married. And that's okay too. Whatever floats your boat. But the bottom line is people are at the place in their lives where that stigma is kind of going away, where, oh, you got to be one perfect person, and no matter how bad it sucks, you got to stay with them the rest of your life and make the best of it. Come on, man. Life's meant to be enjoyed. We're here to enjoy ourselves, to have a good time, to enjoy the gift of life from the divine. Because at the end of the day, we're all divine beings having a human experience. And when you look at things from that perspective, it's like a lot of relationships, and that includes friendships as well. People come and go in your life, and sometimes those relationships are supposed to end. But a lot of people stay stuck in those friendships or those relationships or those careers or those business partnerships because the fear of what comes after, or what if I don't find anybody else, or what if I never find anybody better, causes them to stay stuck, and then they never really reach their full potential. Life's all about reaching your full potential, becoming everything that you're capable of becoming, and not getting attached to anyone or anything in this world, because at the end of the day, everything that you love and everyone that you love and everything that you build during the course of your life at some point is going to dissolve and it's going to turn to dust. And people that come after you and I and everybody else that's watching this video at this point, they're not going to give a shit because they're going to be living their own lives. That's definitely something to think about. And I've personally found that by embracing life and embracing change, because that's the one constant in life. Change is the only constant in life. Nothing ever stays the same. And the more comfortable that you can become as a human being with things changing, whether it's your job changing, your career changing, new friends coming into your life, new acquaintances, new jobs, new business opportunities, new lovers, places that you live, the more open you are to change, the happier you're going to be. And the more successful you're going to be at being able to move out about in the world instead of getting stuck thinking I've got to stay in this relationship, or I've got to keep this person in my life, or I've got to stay working at this job, or I've got to stay living in the same house, in the same neighborhood the whole rest of my life. And there's this amazing planet. And I've been fortunate enough to travel all over the world in my life. And it's amazing to be able to do that because you get exposed to other cultures. You get exposed to how other people live. You get exposed to how other people eat. And then how they go about living their lives. It kind of just, I mean, architecturally, like if you live in the States and you go over to Europe, it's different. The way they build things over there is different. And it's nice to be able to go and to see those things and to see that variety. But if you didn't hop on a plane and go take those kinds of trips, you'd never know what it was like because you don't get to see it with your own eyes and your own ears and taste the food and drink the wine and drink the beer or the water or whatever it happens to be that you get to experience. And so I'm all about experiencing life in every way, shape, or form. And I've long since gotten to the point in my life where I don't try to hold on to anything. It's like when the relationship, whether it's a friendship or a business partnership or an intimate relationship, when it's time to move on, you got to be grateful for the experience. Doesn't mean you have to hate the other person or the people that you're no longer involved with. I mean, I have girlfriends that I dated 10, 15 years ago that I'm still in contact with and I'm still friendly with. And that's a testament to how amazing they are and how strong our bond has been. That even though we've moved on, we still love each other. We still care about each other. We still keep in contact. We still like to know that the other person is doing well, even though we might not want to be in an intimate relationship anymore. We're so grateful that we had the experience with one another. That's the way you should look at life, man. It's a lot simpler that way. So I got a quote that I wrote that I want to share with you before I get into this woman's email. And it says, "Too many people in this world settle for a life that is less than what they are capable of living. They often will date, marry, or have relationships with people who are safe, where they don't really risk getting hurt emotionally because they're simply not into that person. They will also hold on to relationships that really need to end out of their fear that they will never find anyone better. This behavior is exhibited by people who constantly dump and then go back to the person they dumped when they become fearful that they won't find anyone else or anyone better. Not only do they settle in their relationships, but this pattern of mediocrity shows up in their careers, businesses, friendships, and the life and lifestyle they lead. Deep down, they simply don't think it's in the cards for them. If you truly love, respect, and value yourself, you will not tolerate this kind of weak behavior from your potential lovers, friends, business partners, etc. People who are weak and who constantly settle lie to themselves and others in order to maintain their illusion. You have to become really strong as a person to not only walk away from these kinds of people and situations, but to prevent them from trying to drag you back into their illusion and down to their level of mediocrity." So let's go ahead and get into this woman's email. She says, "Hey Corey, I've been dating this guy that I was crazy about for a year and a half, on and off. I'm observing the following pattern with him. Phase number 1. He keeps texting me for a few weeks, then finally asks me out. Well, under normal circumstances, if this was a guy you just met and he was texting back and forth and not asking you out, that would communicate to me a lack of confidence. However, since I've already read this particular email, I know that this guy does this and then he ends up disappearing and then he keeps coming back. And this is like a pattern over and over and over again. And so if this is somebody that you date and things are great for a little bit and then he dumps you and then a short time later he comes back, it's probably because he hasn't found anybody that he really clicks with as well as you. But at the end of the day, your connection is not on the level that deep down he really wants to have. And obviously on some level you have to know yourself that it's just not there. And this is where it's really important to love yourself and to respect yourself and say, you know what? If somebody really loved me, if they really cared about me, they'd really want to be in your life or in my life long term. That's why I look at my friends that I've had for 2.5, some of them almost 30 years they've been in my life. And they're still good buddies of mine. Or some of my girlfriends going back over 15 years ago. I'm lucky and I'm blessed that I've had those kinds of relationships with them. And that we stay in touch and we stay in contact even though we're no longer in exclusive, intimate type relationships anymore. She says we date and she says, so phase number 2 is that we date and we get along quite well. We highly enjoy each other's company and the chemistry is great. Then she says phase 3, on the 5th, always the 5th, in parentheses she says, on the 5th date, he acts cold for seemingly no reason. Maybe he's been bottling things up, but he never complained about anything other than me being 10 to 15 minutes late to date sometimes. Woman's prerogative. Phase number 4. He disappears completely without a word. I don't chase him, I just go into no contact. Good for you. It's good that you allow, because if somebody just disappears from your life, it makes you look very needy and like you have no self-respect and no self-worth when you start to run after somebody. And I commend you for having the strength to just let him go, to let him go and do his thing. Because at the end of the day, it takes two people to make a relationship work. And the bottom line is this person is kind of checked out. He's not investing any energy into the relationship, and you're willing to continue to date and have fun, but when he just blows you off and goes cold like that, you're like, I'm not chasing after your ass. Fucking good for you. That's awesome. So she says phase number 5. I never hear from him again until about 2 months later when he apologizes for disappearing and starts to slowly try to gain my trust back and trying to date me again. I had a buddy of mine that, I've talked about him before. This was one of my we all went to school together, and we were in our early 20s. He used to live with another really good friend of mine who one of my best friends to this day. And this guy had this chick that was like a booty call, and he used to talk about how unattractive she was, but she was great in bed. And he was just rude, he was disrespectful. He'd come home drunk at 3 in the morning, just shit-faced, being rude, and just basically call her up and say, hey, you should come on over. And he would wake her up, and she'd hop in the shower, she'd get all dressed up, and she'd come on over, have sex with him. So in other words, we'd go out, and then when he wouldn't hook up with anybody, he'd go home and he'd call this girl, this booty call. And I kind of lost touch with this guy after I moved to Orlando. This was in the 90s. And what ended up happening was about 7-8 years later, this just continued on with him. He'd blow this girl off, date some other chicks, then it wouldn't work out. He'd call her up, start hanging out with her again, and he ended up marrying this girl. And they have several kids together, and I saw them a few years ago, and they're not happy. And you look at the behavior. What is the behavior? It's weakness. He's going back to what's easy because he can't really get what he wants. And like what I do as a coach is that I can teach you how to have a really great relationship with somebody, and I can teach you how to cause them to fall in love with you. However, what I cannot do is I cannot make you want to stay in love with that person the rest of your life and always want to be with them. Because, like I said, my experience when I look at the world as a whole, when I look at all the friends, even friends of mine that have been married and with the same person for a long period of time, is that the overwhelming majority of people, it's the exception to the rule for somebody to be together with one person, be with that person their whole entire lives. The majority of us, it's just not in the cards, and that's okay. You have to be okay with that. Because when you think about it, when you look at the fact there's 6.5, almost 7 billion people on this planet, there's all kinds of different shapes and sizes of us. Some people have kids, some people don't have kids, some people get married and stay together forever. Some people are totally just like hanging out, having fun, and hooking up with random people. Some people like traveling around the world. They live in one city for a few months or a few years, and they have lots of girlfriends, or if they're women, they have lots of boyfriends, and then they move to another place. And that's okay too. Some people have relationships where there's one guy and 2 or 3 women, and some have relationships where there's 1 woman and 2 guys. Different strokes for different folks, and whatever works for you, whatever makes you happy, guess what? It's your fucking life. Do whatever you want, whatever makes you happy. Don't try to fit yourself into somebody else's box or to live your life or your relationships according to other people's expectations, because the world is full of people that have in essence been programmed by society and what they've seen in the movies and TV. And anytime they look around, they see somebody that's a nonconformist, someone kind of like myself, it just sends them into overload. It just fucking sends them into orbit. They can't fucking deal with it. Instead of worrying about themselves and creating their own life and lifestyle, they're trying to get everybody else in their life to match and mirror their own life, even though they're miserable. Misery loves company. Because if miserable people, when they can get other people to come down to their level of mediocrity, then they don't feel so bad about their shitty lives. So phase 5, I never hear from him again until about 2 months later, where he apologizes for disappearing and then starts to slowly try and gain my trust back in trying to date me again. The same pattern has repeated itself 3 times. Right now we're on phase 5 for the 3rd time. What do you think his deal is? Is he just using me when he gets lonely, or is there a different possible explanation? I'd say it definitely from his behavior. It looks like when he realizes he can't find somebody better or that he connects with better, he comes back to you. But at the end of the day, after hanging out for a couple of months, I guess 5 to 7 dates with it, which typically is what happened. Date number 7, I guess, is when he tends to disappear. Then that's what it looks like. It looks like that after several dates with you, he realizes he's not happy with you, and then he's like, I got to go find somebody who's really my goals and values are aligned with. And then he goes off and he blows you off and just disappears, and then he doesn't find that person. He gets impatient. He goes, oh my God, I'm never going to find anybody better than so-and-so. Let me give her a call and see if I can get her back. I got a guy that I know that's like this. And I've talked about him in the past. He's a guy that used to work for me years ago. And he's been with this same girl for, when did he meet her? 2007. So it's almost 7 years he's been with this girl. He's got a kid with her. And he's got 3, 4, 5 chicks that he's fucking at any one given time. Like for him, he's the type of guy that just loves the hunt. He loves to go out and go to bars and nightclubs or wherever. And especially when a woman tells him no, he loves to try to conquer. He loves to try to hook up with her and sleep with her. And this girl that he's with, he's broken up with her numerous times. I've helped him get her back, I think 4 or 5 times at this point, when he's just ditched her in a really rude, asshole way. She moves, back to where she's from, across the country. And then after a month or two, he says, oh, I miss her. She's the perfect woman for me. And then he goes and he flies out to her parents' house and apologizes and kisses ass. And eventually he gets her to come back because obviously she's really in love with him. She comes back and it's like the same fucking cycle over and over. And he was doing the same pattern with his ex-wife 15 years ago. It's the same fucking shit over and over. And because I know this guy personally, he used to work for me. He's like this in every area of his life. He's got all these dreams and goals that he wants to do, but he's just too scared to go for them. And so he's kind of stuck in neutral. He's stuck living a life of mediocrity. His relationships are mediocre. His business is mediocre. He never does... Like, I hear from, like, maybe once a month, every month and a half. He's like, dude, I got to book a phone session with you to do some business coaching. I'm like, great. I'm going to book it tonight and I'll call you tomorrow. I hear from a month later. Same shit. Hey, dude, I got to get some business coaching. I got some things going on I really need your help with. Sure, man, no problem. I'll book it tonight. No, all right, no problem, dude. He says, like, I'll call you tomorrow. No problem, man. A month later. Same fucking shit. Or sometimes it's 2 months later. And he just never gets around to it. He's just dicking around in life in general. It's like with his girlfriends, with his business, with the way he takes care of his body, the way he lives his life. He's just stuck in a place of mediocrity where fear literally is like concrete shoes for him. And I feel bad for him, but hey, he makes his own choices. And he's admitted he's just too afraid. He's too scared. So she continues on. Would it have helped if I explicitly communicated my terms and only agreed to take him back if he accepted? Well, the bottom line is, what are his actions? His actions are the actions of a weak man, of a man who deep down knows that the chemistry between the two of you is just not where it really needs to be in order to be a long-term relationship where he stays with you and doesn't disappear after the 5th or 7th date. And you demean yourself by continually taking him back. You should say, look, obviously there's something wrong here. There's obviously some serious chemistry lacking between the two of us, because if the chemistry wasn't lacking, you wouldn't keep disappearing after the 5th or 6th or 7th date. And you're a great guy and the sex is great, but have a nice life. If you want a long-term relationship with somebody, you're going to have to stand up for yourself and telling them that. Because if you keep taking him back over and over, hoping that things are going to be different, hoping that he's going to change, you're enabling his behavior. You're inviting him to continue to do that to you. Remember, no one will ever do or say anything to you that you don't invite them to do. And so in essence, you're inviting him to continue to use you. I mean, do you really want to marry a guy like this, who after a month or two of spending time together, he's just bored, he doesn't want to be with you? Absolutely not. You want to be with somebody who fucking treasures you. And it's not going to happen. This guy really, he's a fuck buddy. He's a sex playmate. And if you're cool with that, then keep him as such. Just have the attitude, if you don't really care one way or another, don't ever call him, don't ever text him, don't ever make any effort. And when he reaches out to you, obviously go out and hang out and have fun and hook up with him. But keep looking and keep your options open for the kind of guy that you really want. Because the bottom line is, the people that are meant to stay in your life, they will stay in your life out of their own choice, out of their own free will. That's something that's really important. And a lot of people, and I had this problem with this concept when I was younger as well. It's common sense, but when we look at this person doesn't really want to be in our lives, and yet we try to force them and we try to reason with them and we pursue them and we kind of stalk them in a way to keep them in our lives. It just demeans us, demeans ourselves, and it keeps us from having that next great encounter, that next great experience, and that next great relationship that we're supposed to have. She says, I don't think he is in it just for the sex because I don't give it up as easily. The first time we were intimate was on the 7th date, lol. I liked him a lot, but I am sick of getting hurt and I feel disrespected because of his disappearing stunts. The problem is that you are attached to him sticking around in your life. Instead of looking at it and just being grateful that he's in your life however long he sticks around. But the reality is, if you want a long-term monogamous relationship with somebody, this guy ain't it. It's obvious from his behavior pattern, it's not it. He's a sex playmate, and that's it. And obviously you want something more than that, but it's obvious from his actions, which are really the only thing that matters, that he's incapable of that. He just, obviously, he doesn't feel that, or maybe he's messed up. It really doesn't fucking matter. The bottom line is he's not treating you the way you need to be treated in order to have a relationship with him. However, if you can be okay with not being attached to having a relationship with him and just be cool with being a sex playmate or a fuck buddy, then enjoy it while it lasts until you find the right guy for you. She says, I feel like he does not really want me. I would agree with that. But does not want to give me up for either, because when he comes back, I can tell that he's worried about me seeing other men. We're both in our mid-20s and in a transitional period of our lives in terms of our careers. I would say your statement right there is pretty honest about that, where you feel like he does not really want you, but he's not wanting to give you up either. It's just like my buddy that I was telling you about from 20 years ago, who basically married his fuck buddy. The girl, he was just so rude and disrespectful to her, and now he's married to this woman because he's settled. Because everybody said, hey, you got to get married. Hey, you got to have kids. Hey, there's something wrong with you if you're not fucking married. When are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? All the relatives, when am I going to get my fucking grandkids? And then he gave everybody what they wanted, and in the process, he made himself miserable. In essence, he lost himself in who he was. And now he's overweight, she's overweight, he's not really that fucking happy. He doesn't put the effort into his business that he should be putting into it. And he's going to die many decades before he should have, because his life sucks. He's not taking care of himself. He's not taking care of his body. He's just kind of drifting along in life now. And that's what the average person does. And it's really sad that people do that. The idea is that you want to be free. You want to be free to enjoy your life. Now, if you're the type of person that you really want to be with one person the rest of your life, and you meet the right person for you, awesome, good for you. But it doesn't mean every person that's in your life has to adopt the same belief system or have to have the same kind of a relationship. Remember, the purpose of life is just simply to enjoy it. It's your life. It's your gift from the Creator. Make it a masterpiece. Make it whatever you'd like. And if you'd like to get my help to help you create the ultimate life and lifestyle that is to your liking and your choosing, go to my website right now and click the products tab at the top of your screen and book a paid phone, Skype, or email coaching with yours truly. If you'd like to get a Kindle version or a paperback version of my book, on my website underneath the email sign-up box is a link, an image of my book. When you click it, it'll take you right to Amazon. You can order or download whichever version of my book that you'd like. And I will talk to you soon.